Okay. So we go from a film that came out to something that's frankly a little scary. I got to be honest. So we love movies. I love movies. Everybody in the chat loves movies. Everybody watching here loves movies. Um, and Dad says the internet is about who complains the loudest over things that is not serious. Take the eight. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's definitely something that. And there was a statement put out by the actual developers, and we're definitely going to get to that, later on today. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dev. Um, so I love movies. Everybody in the chat loves movies. Everybody watching here loves movies. Movies are not only an art form, but they tell stories. And when you tell stories, it's one of those things where old stories, okay, have to be kept preserved. And one of the greatest things that everybody has had at their disposal, okay, over the past, I would say 30 or 40 years, okay, even probably longer than that, is TCM. TCM, okay, is one of those things that it's a fantastic thing, okay, because you can watch a movie that maybe inspired you to get into movies. Okay. I know that, I mean, I took a film class when I was 19 and I watched several films that were on TCM. But it's also one of those things where if you don't want to watch an IP, and we're all about IP today, you can go turn on TCM and watch something from the 1970s. Okay. A Deer Hunter, Bonnie and Clyde, or something, anything. And it's a fantastic thing. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is because um, David Zaslov. Yes, that David Zaslov from Max, okay? He needed to cut money, okay? And he even put this in, I did a story about this the other day about him licensing out some of his shows to Netflix to try and get some money in because he promised investors, okay, by the end of 2024, okay, or 2023, it's going to turn a profit. By the end of 2025, it will have generated $1 billion in revenue. Okay. Which we'll see what happens with that. But nonetheless, two of the biggest, best minds, okay, and I think has changed the game, okay, and they're on Mount Rushmore, okay, is Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese. Their films over the past 40 years have changed the game, okay? Whether it's Spielberg with Jaws and what he did, okay, or you got Mean Streets with Scorsese. I mean, I could be here all day listing the movies that they've done. Anyways, the story is basically they went to David Zaslov and they said, look, we need to keep this stuff. And this comes from the THR. And basically it says that Spielberg and Scorsese, and actually Paul Thomas Anderson, who's not pictured there, were, quote, heartened by the TCM talks after Zaslov. Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and Paul Thomas Anderson are reassuring fans that Turner Classic Movies, the classic film network and brand in the midst of a shakeup that has startled people. In a joint statement released Wednesday, the three filmmakers said that Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslov has reached out to them earlier in the week about plans to restructure TCM, which saw its executive VP and general manager exit this week after more than 25 years at the company, along with key members of her team. Michael Overland, the president of Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, Discovery Family, and Boomerang, will have oversight over TCM. We have spent time with David separately and together, and it's clear that TCM and classic cinema are very important to him, the director's statement read. Our primary aim is to ensure that TCM's programming is untouched and protected. We are heartened and encouraged by the conversations we've had thus far, and we are committed to working together to ensure that continuation of the cultural touchstone that we all treasure. The TCM shakeup comes as WBD is undergoing a round of cuts in its domestic networks team. But the media conglomerate's classic film brand is one with a deep connection to Hollywood creatives and news of change that has begun stirring a strong response both publicly and privately. After news of Shergan and his team's departure broke this week, Ryan Reynolds, yes, that Ryan Reynolds who's done Deadpool, okay, said, Turner Classic Movies has been a fixture in my life for as long as I can remember. It's a holy corner of film history and a living, breathing library for an entire film art film. Please do not fuck with TCM. In April, Zaslov took the unusual step for the CEO, appearing on stage of opening night of TCM's Classic Film Festival alongside Spielberg and Anderson for a conversation about film preservation, moderated by the network's longtime host, Ben Metzgerowitz. The movies taught us the stories of America, the stories of the world, and in some ways, how to be an American, Zaslov said at the event. The full text of the statement from Spielberg, Anderson, and Scoresese are below here. This is a brief statement. I'm just going to read it to you. So that's essentially what it was. It said, Turner Classic Movies has always been more than a channel. It's been a precious resource of cinema, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And while it's never been a financial juggernaut, it's always been a profitable endeavor since its inception. Early in the week, David Zaslov, the CEO of WBD, got in touch with restructuring TCM. We understand the pressures and realities of a big corporation in which TCM is a moving part. And then it goes on to what I was saying. We have spent time with David separately and together, and it's clear that it's very important to him. Our primary aim is to ensure that TCM's program is untouched and protected. We are heartened and encouraged by the conversation we've had thus far, and we've committed to working together. So let's just dive into this because it's important. Number one, so Dad quickly says here, I'm sick about this news. I wholeheartedly love the channel and the hosts. Yeah, I love TCM too. I do as well. And you're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. I went to a TCM thing a couple years ago. It's a fantastic thing. And it's really what got me into, loving movies. So here's the thing, okay? I understand it's a business, okay? I also understand it's necessary for him to answer to stockholders. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, okay, he doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do, okay? So just because he took, Wes Anderson and Spielberg and Scorsese's, conversation, doesn't mean he has to follow through, keep it, okay? If we've seen anything from David Zaslov, we know that he knows very little about the entertainment business. Very little. When he's calling The Flash one of the greatest Superman or superhero movies of all time, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Everything else he has done, whether it's the restructuring of Max, okay, where he took off almost 400 titles, which, by the way, at one point, the DOJ almost got involved, and the FTC were looking into the allegations of what happened with that, okay, to, now this, okay, to one of the biggest things when he came in, and that was Axing Batgirl, $90 million just gone. 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 And that was huge on so many different levels because you had, first of all, that would have been a Latino star in Leslie Grace, okay? It would have, Brendan Fraser was having a rough year at that too, okay? He was in that along with somebody else, If we're talking about bad CGI, look at what just happened. Look at what just happened with The Flash. That's, let them. There was no release date. Even they could have put this. They could have set this back another 6 months, worked on the CGI, released it in theaters, and made quite a bit of money. It would have blown up. Okay, so you got that. There are so many. I've always said this: previous results often dictate future outcomes. Just the fact that he's even merely talking about acts of TCM. I mean, think about all the movies. Think about all the movies on there. Okay, one of the greatest movies, even though it's a controversial movie today, is Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind is number 3, okay, on AFI's top 100 list. Number 3. Think about that. That was done in 1939. Now, are the overtones of that film, do they not, is it controversial today? Yes. Are there warnings in front of the film? Yes. But think about all these movies that we would not have or that would get taken away. Okay? I'm talking about Gone with the Wind. I'm talking about Deer Hunter. I'm talking about Bonnie and Clyde. I'm talking a litany of movies. A litany of movies. I hope private funding can save TCM. Zaslov doesn't deserve. And that's what I hope they do. That's what I really hope they do is Spielberg, because people don't know this about Scorsese. He started the whole foundation about restoration film way back in the day. And he's been a big proponent, right? So, I mean, I totally agree with you, by the way. You get, but you absolutely, you could put everything on a TC, you could put TCM on a streaming service itself, and people, I'm not saying they should, okay? But you could have this a DTC, direct to consumer type of thing, and have it as a streaming service, okay? Where, let's say, you're paying X amount for Max, you could take all the TCM films, okay, and attach it as another subset. And if you wanted to pay an extra $5, okay, pay the extra $5 and you have access to all those. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that, okay? Or you take all those TCM movies and start your own streaming service. And it's just those. People, once again, I don't think it's because here's the thing: you're paying for cable anyways, right? So whether you're paying for cable and getting TCM through your cable provider, or you're actually getting it through a streaming service, you're still accessing one way or the other. That's so. But this, I agree with Dad on this. Somebody needs to come in and save TCM. And I mean, here's the thing. You have two of the biggest voices in the industry for the last 45, 50 years in Spielberg and Scorsese. And I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Zaslov, because don't forget he's a business person. Okay? It's all about the green. It's all about the money. Okay? I wouldn't be shocked if he's said one thing to those two and then axed it later on. I wouldn't be shocked because he just wants to get him out of his hair. Okay? That's all. So, look, I'm just as nervous as everybody else about this because these are stories that have to be told. And these are stories. What would happen, hypothetically speaking? Could you imagine not being able to watch Wizard of Oz? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine not being able to watch Gone with the Wind? Could you imagine not being able to watch, I don't know, The Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, all these films? So, absolutely. The Godfather. I mean, that's what I'm talking about here, guys. This is serious stuff. I mean, you're talking about 40, 50 Jaws, for Christ's sakes. Okay? I mean, and I'll say this, the other thing I'll say is this, too. If these films by Scorsese and Spielberg are included in TCM, That's why they're fighting as hard as they are. Because they have people, okay? They have films in this particular, on this particular channel that could get whacked. I mean, so this is a TBT wait and see type of thing. I hope, fingers crossed, I hope he comes to his senses, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? What do you think? Do you think Spielberg and Scorsese and Anderson actually convinced Zaslov of actually keeping it? Or do you think he's going to renege on him and tell him basically, tough luck, I got to do what the investors want me to do? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody.